This is Omar Nashashibi in Washington, D.C., where I've been spending some time on Capitol Hill and speaking with members of Congress and staff who handle trade issues, discussing the possibility of trade legislation moving through the House and Senate later this year. On April 17, 2024, the U.S. House of Representatives Committee on Ways and Means, along party lines, passed a bill retroactively renewing Generalized System of Preferences, or GSP, and reforming the law governing duty-free de minimis imports. Most trade policy makers and consultants here in Washington, D.C. are preparing for possible trade legislation after the November 5th election in a likely lame duck session of Congress, depending on the outcome of those elections. While it is possible lawmakers will try to move trade legislation this summer, it is highly unlikely, and members of Congress are working now towards a broader trade package that may come together later this year, or at least they are laying the groundwork in the hopes that one could come together. Relying upon a trade package coming together are those who exchange goods with developing nations, are impacted by lower value imports from China, and import small quantities of chemicals and other inputs not manufactured in the United States. In that April 17th markup, where the U.S. House Trade Policy Committee cleared 6 bills, 2 of which have significant impact on trade policy and supply chains. The Generalized System of Preferences GSP Reform Act, H.R. 7986, renews the GSP program through December 2030 and is retroactive to January 1st of 2021. GSP eliminates duties on thousands of imports from 119 developing countries and territories. Established by the Trade Act of 1974, congressional inaction led to GSP expiring at the end of 2020, resulting in duties being imposed on those imports from developing nations. In addition to restarting the program retroactive to 2021, the authorization of GSP through 2030, the committee also passed legislation barring China from the program and also removes countries from the list of GSP eligibility with close military ties to China. The language also increases the rule of origin for the GSP program from 35% to 50% with additional incentives for U.S. content. The Ways and Means Committee also addressed a more controversial topic, ending China's ability to import into the U.S. duty-free under the de minimis exemption. In 2016, after passage of a law the year before, the U.S. Customs and Border Protection increased the de minimis value from $200 to $800 for those products entering the United States free of duties and taxes. The increased threshold allowed thousands more products to enter the United States duty-free, and many importers began employing a strategy of breaking up shipments into smaller quantities to reduce the value below the de minimis threshold of $800. The legislation which cleared the committee on April 17th, H.R. 7979, the End China's De Minimis Abuse Act, prohibits entry into the United States under de minimis for any imported products appearing on the Section 301 tariff list covering imports from China, or the Section 232 and 201 tariff actions covering solar panels, steel, aluminum, and other imports from around the world. In a summary of the legislation, the committee cited the CBP numbers showing that Chinese imports generated 60.8% of all de minimis entries. The bill also increases civil penalties for violations and improves tracking of these entries. While both parties support the need to renew GSP and address de minimis imports, no Democrats voted for the bills in committee. In addition to procedural objections, Democrats in both the House and Senate would like to add more legislation restarting trade adjustment assistance for workers to any broader trade measures. Sources in Washington indicate that should a trade package come together later this year, Democrats would likely continue to insist on pairing TAA with GSP and de minimis. House Republicans believe, though, that trade adjustment assistance is a separate topic, as it is typically paired with trade promotion authority. Regardless, one side or the other must likely move on their position if any trade legislation of a consequence is going to advance later this year, particularly in a lame duck session. Also likely facing the same fate is the miscellaneous tariff bill, which is a targeted measure allowing individual companies to request temporary exemptions from paying tariffs on imports not manufactured in the United States. The bill only applies to specific goods requested by private companies, but can also impact intra-company transfer of inputs across the border coming into the United States. Trade legislation emerging from the House committee is encouraging. However, the single-party vote is telling about the process, especially in this divided Congress. Many of us still believe we could see a trade package move in the lame duck session after the election, and depending on the results of which party controls each chamber. This test run, though, through the Ways and Means Committee did also reveal that there is more work to go in moving the GSP, MTB, and de minimis, especially if trade adjustment assistance is involved. As always, whether from Capitol Hill or the Biden administration, we will continue to keep you up to date on developments related to trade and supply chains. As always, again, please feel free to reach out to CLA for more information on this and other topics to help your business.